Welcome, everyone, to the Wildly Opinionated News Hour. Todd's World. I'm here with Carrie.
Hello.
How's it going, Carrie?
I feel moderately opinionated.
She's been all over the place today,
I've been all
trying to
over.
get her life together.
I really am. It's not happening, but the effort is actually no, I'm not. I'm really just driving all over Florida, visiting people, and
Are egg prices down yet in Florida? I
I've
just
been
read they're
told
falling, falling, falling.
I'm reading that they're falling. I have not seen cheap eggs yet.
Okay, all
I
right.
just got some free eggs from a neighbor with
Oh, well,
chickens.
that's good. That's
So
cheap.
that was cheap.
That's the Trump effect, I think, right there.
The chickens are more lucrative right
I
now. No,
saw
I don't know.
eggs at Costco. I just paid attention the other day
Hmm.
were 2 dozen for $8. I don't know.
That's good.
It is okay.
That's much better. Because
And
it's been like 1 to 1.5 dozen for $8. So that's
okay.
an improvement. It's cool.
I've seen multiple tweets and charts and things about the price coming down.
Okay.
So I'm hopeful that things are getting better for you, Gary,
So the thing,
and
I know,
your eggs.
because you know that I buy a lot of eggs.
You were worried about the eggs. You said in Florida those eggs are not coming down.
Well, yeah, they're not. And you know what? I'm
People
gonna
down
check.
here are eating alligator eggs.
Okay. My box of 60 alligator eggs. My box of 60 that I like to buy,
Hmm.
60, is still $24.
Okay.
And it's usually somewhere between like 9 and 11.
Okay. So it's still got to come down a ways.
Yeah, I'm not buying that yet.
Okay.
Oh well.
That's fair.
It's fine. We're fine.
Things are on the right track.
We'll use our neighbors' eggs.
You know, the
They're
courts are
delicious.
still tying Trump up too. Did you see that?
No, what are
Like,
they doing?
I mean, this is nonstop. It's like all these
The man has to
different
be so
judges
tired.
and the judge who got oh, I can't remember the guy's name, but the guy who is on the DC District Court
Okay.
who has ruled against Trump. He told him he had to turn those planes around with those Venezuelan gang members in, which Trump didn't.
Oh, he
And
wanted to bring the Venezuelan gang members back?
yeah, they didn't get due process.
Oh my goodness.
And and so there's been a lot about all that. But
Todd, are
that
you
same
losing
judge,
sleep? Are you losing sleep at night over the Venezuelan gang members being deported?
no,
Is that making you sad and
no.
disturbed?
I will say there's
What's wrong
things
with these
about it
people?
that I mean, of course, the media is going to come up with the stories that is
Hmm.
like that are the tearjerker stories, right?
Sure.
Of course
Oh,
they are.
yes, of course.
But there are things that I would like there to be a little more due process. But see, here's the deal: is I understand what's happened, and that's what we talked about before, which is that by Biden and the Democrats doing what they did by
Hmm.
just flying people in, I mean,
Yeah.
untold like 11 million, 15 million illegal aliens from all over, God knows where, terrorists, every other thing, just opening the border wide. By doing all that, they created a crisis,
Hmm.
and no matter what we do in order to deal with it, it's going to be uncomfortable. That's what I think. And there's things about it that make me uncomfortable. I
That's
just,
true.
ugh.
It's still
There's,
just baffling that the media wasn't concerned about that crisis.
because
No.
it's like we're in a war almost. I
Yeah.
mean, kind
They're
of,
just
but
cons
it's
they're just concerned that these people with the debit cards that our government gave them are being forced to leave.
it's
How dare
certainly
we?
an invasion, right?
Yes.
And I mean, if you're going to deal with an invasion, you're not going to use the typical, like the Constitution that's for American citizens that all of the
Hmm.
states and we the people all agreed on. We aren't going to take all of those rights and
Right.
say, hey, all the invaders get those too. You know what I
Because they're
mean?
here. Yes.
Now, the problem with that is that you have people who probably you're going to have innocent people who get caught up in the melee. And
Yeah.
that's unfortunate because
It
we have
is.
a
Truly.
justice system set up to where we would rather see multiple guilty people go free than one innocent person go to jail or whatever. That
Okay.
I know it's not. I understand that it doesn't always work. I'm just saying
Oh,
that's
I
the
hear you though.
ideal behind it. That's what we
Yes.
were shooting for, right?
Yes.
And you just can't take that kind of because of what it does time wise to everything. It's not practical. Nobody's ever tried to do that in times of war, in times of invasion, times of anything.
Hmm.
It's just not practical to do that. So,
Right.
but that's this same judge, the same DC District Court judge. They're
Okay.
supposed to be assigned cases by random, and he's gotten 4 cases in a row for Trump.
That sounds random.
And his wife works for an NGO that Elon Musk is trying to shut down. So there's all kinds of
This
also
is all
he's
coincidence, surely.
he's foreign born. That was
Hmm.
interesting to me, and
Oh my gosh,
I
this is the guy you told me about. And I said, why do we have a judge, like a judge, someone in this position who isn't even
I have to tell you, I wish I
American?
could find that because I swear that I had a tweet or not a tweet post on X that I sent
Hmm.
myself that listed the number of foreign born judges on that DC district kind of court thing, and it
Wild.
was shocking. I don't know that it was half, but it was probably a third. It was a lot.
That's a lot. I mean, I would think, again, depending on the circumstances, I'm assuming they came here. I don't know if it's safe to assume, but I would assume that they came here legally. So, yeah.
And they're basically um I mean these judges are basically saying we're going to shut we're the executive. We decide what the president can do and what the president can't do.
Hmm.
That's that's where we're at. So
Yeah.
now it's moved up to the appellate court. The DC appellate court ruled against Trump. Now Trump has made and this is on a bunch of different things. Now Trump has made an appeal to the Supreme Court for an emergency ruling. I think it's on that Alien and Enemies Act thing that
Oh, the 1800
the old law that he
something.
declared useful to
Yeah.
take and remove the Venezuelan invaders and the gangs and everything else. We have
Yep.
what did I saw a stat that's like once every somebody dies of a fentanyl overdose in the US every 6 minutes or 7 minutes or something.
Lord have mercy.
Crazy. Like,
But the media is not appalled by that.
no, they don't mind. They're fine with whatever. They're not looking at any of that. They're
As
worried
long as the
about that
people dying
signal
aren't,
chat.
as long as the people, well, as long as the people dying aren't, aren't migrants, then it's okay.
Hmm.
That would be a humanitarian crisis.
Right. We
But
can't
we
have
don't
that.
count.
Or if they were Ukrainians.
Sure.
No, that's not true. We don't care about that. In fact, we feed Ukrainians to the meat grinder. We grab them off the street.
Well, we don't.
No, Zelensky does.
Right.
Grabs
But
them
that's
off the
okay.
street and throws them off to the front. And then,
Right.
but that is democracy in
Right.
action, I guess.
We are
As they
100% behind
scream
that.
and their kids and their wives scream,
Unbelievable.
"Welcome to democracy." I guess I don't know.
Democracy.
Freedom.
Ukrainian democracy. Freedom.
That was what
Watch
Mao
out for
fought for.
that van. The van's coming.
I know they ought to be marked or something.
Terrible. What did you say about the group chat? The
Well, you
Oh.
did see some of that because that was all over. I did a little
Mhm.
because we didn't address it last week because we record on
Right.
Saturdays and it hit later.
Okay.
And I thought it was nothing, and I still think it's nothing, and I
Okay.
think it's clearly pre-planned. What happened
Yes,
essentially?
somebody,
Do you
this is
know what
definitely
happened?
planned by someone.
Like, do you know the nuts and bolts of what happened? Should we give people the
I'm not clear on who it was, like what his position was, but this guy
an
who,
editor at the Atlantic
yeah,
got supposedly accidentally added to a group chat with
yeah.
the CIA director, the Secretary
Hmm.
of Defense, Pete Hegseth. JD Vance was in there.
Hmm.
A bunch of people talking about
Yeah.
this blowing up some of these Houthis over
Yes,
there.
that's right. But it's like all the details. I'm like, first of all, why are they texting, in any kind of group chat
Well,
situation? This is
this
my impression.
I know this is what they're telling you. That's what I want you to keep
Yeah.
going to tell people because this is what the media is telling everybody.
Yeah, so I'm thinking it's a text thread. Why are they texting all the details of this
Right.
operation, the details of the planes and the weapons that will be used and the timing and whatever?
Mhm.
Okay.
Now, what I have in front of me
Okay.
right now,
Okay.
my formerly nicotine stained fingers, no. That's what Rush always used to say. But he'd print everything out and rattle it. I don't have it
Okay. Oh,
printed
that's
out,
right.
but I have it in front of me.
It's on
I have
screen.
the actual text
Hmm.
that this editor from the Atlantic. Now, first of all, it had to be. I believe everything about this is coordinated.
It
If
sounded
if
like it.
anybody that thinks this is organic is just not, you're not living in the
Okay.
same
So after we
place.
hear the details, I want to hear the why you think they did that. But
But
okay, go ahead.
no, I think it was coordinated by I think somehow they got in, and it was coordinated by the deep state and by the media and
Mm-hmm.
the Democrats,
Okay.
and their response is all
Okay.
none of it's organic is my point.
Right. Okay.
I don't mean that Hegseth and these in Vance meant to let the guy in. That's not what I mean.
Okay.
I
Who
mean
was
that
the sender?
the sender, I think, was the CIA director who initiated it, Michael Walls.
Walls.
So
Okay.
Walls put together this group, and the first thing he says is, "Team establishing a principals group for coordination on Houthis."
Mm-hmm.
I think it's fair to point out that he says nothing about the blowfish, which I think is a little bit of bullshit.
I know.
But anyway, just the
The
Houthis,
blowfish
and
are
they even spell it
constantly
wrong.
neglected. No,
Like
they're
Darius
constantly
Rucker had his
neglected.
name spelled wrong.
Hootie gets way more attention than the blowfish.
Particularly over the next 72 hours, my deputy, Alexander Wong, is pulling together a Tiger team at Deputies Agency Chief of Staff level following up from the meeting in the sit room this morning for action items and we'll be sending out later this evening,
Okay.
blah, blah, blah. And then he adds a bunch of people. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So Michael Walls, who I'm pretty sure is the CIA director or National Intelligence something. Maybe you want to look that up, but he's
I'm
something
going to
like
look it up.
that.
Okay. That's
He's
because this is one of my primary questions because of
he was
something
the
I
one
heard
who
someone
added
say.
Goldberg, who was I think it was Jeffrey Goldberg was the Atlantic guy from the Atlantic.
Okay. Michael Walls.
He's the one who set the thing up, and he's the one who added him. Now, because supposedly he had his number, it showed up under I don't know initials, and he didn't think about there's somebody else with the same initials, or I don't know. But see,
Hmm.
your question is still these are classified things, right? People
Well,
should be taking
that
more
was my
care. Well,
impression.
that's what the media has told us.
Okay, got it. Okay, apparently there's a famous harpist that is
I don't
Michael
think that's the
Walls.
guy.
So I have to, I'm having a hard time finding
Don't
because I
worry
don't
about
know
it.
who he
He's
is.
something
Okay.
like I think he's CIA director, but I can't remember for sure.
Okay.
So this is Michael Walls. Team, you should have a statement of conclusions with taskings per president's guidance this morning in your high side inboxes. State and DOD, we developed suggested notifications, blah, 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 joint staff, blah, blah, blah. I'm going
Hmm.
to do a lot of blah, blah, blah because there's a lot of that in here. Okay,
Okay.
here's JD Vance.
Okay.
Team, I am out for the day doing an economic event in Michigan, but
Woo.
I think we are making a mistake. JD Vance thinks we're making a
Oh,
mistake.
okay.
3% of U.S. trade runs through the Suez. 40% of European trade does. There's a real risk that the public doesn't understand this or why it's necessary. The strongest reason to do this, as POTUS said, is to send a message. But I'm not sure the president is aware how inconsistent this is with message on Europe right now. There's a further risk that we see a moderate to severe spike in oil prices. I am willing to support the consensus of the team and keep those concerns to myself, but there is a strong argument for delaying this a month and doing the messaging work on why this matters and seeing where the economy is. Okay, so that's JD.
Okay.
That seemed horribly classified. Do you think anybody's going to die from that?
No,
No, maybe not. Maybe
certainly
not.
not the Houthis.
Not yet. No one's going to die from that. No American
Okay.
servicemen's lives were put in danger, I don't think.
Okay. No.
Joe Kent, don't know who he is, but he's in the text. He says there's nothing time sensitive driving the timeline. We'll have the exact same options in a month. The Israelis will likely take strikes and therefore ask us for more support to replenish whatever they use against the Houthis, but that's a minor factor. I will send you the unclassed data we pulled on BAM shipping. This is John Ratcliffe from CIA. Maybe he's the CIA guy. From
Yep.
CIA perspective, we are mobilizing assets to support now but a delay would not negatively impact us, and additional time would be used to identify better starting points for coverage on Houthi leadership. Okay. Then Pete Hegseth has something to
Okay.
say. Uh, so he really sounds drunk, though. No, I'm just kidding.
I was
Pete's
gonna
out
say,
there.
I was gonna
Pete's
say,
with
does
his
he sound like
flask
he?
emoji.
I was gonna say, I'm sorry. I was gonna say, I'm glad you made a joke because I was thinking, does he sound like he's flexing his beautiful biceps while he's texting
With
this
his Christian
message?
nationalist tattoos. Okay.
Okay,
Pete Hegseth says
Pete.
VP, so he's responding to Vance. I
Okay.
understand your concerns and fully support you raising with POTUS. That's President of the United States. For those of you out there down in the red states
Who
of
don't know?
Florida. No, I'm just kidding. Important considerations, most of which are tough to know how they play out.
hmm
Economy, Ukraine peace, Gaza, etc. I think messaging is going to be tough no matter what. Nobody knows who the Houthis are, which he's right about that,
Right.
which is why we would need to stay focused on one, Biden failed, two, Iran funded. Waiting a few weeks or month does not fundamentally change the calculus. Too immediate risk on waiting. This leaks and we look indecisive. Israel takes an action first, or Gaza ceasefire falls apart. We don't get to start this on our own terms. We can manage both. So those are just two downsides. We are
Okay.
prepared to execute, and I had final go or no go vote. I believe we should. So if he had the vote, he'd say that they
Would be
should
to
do
do
it.
it now.
Yep. This is not
Okay.
about the Houthis or the Blowfish. I see it as two things: restoring freedom of navigation, a core national interest. I can get down with that. Reestablish deterrence, which Biden created. So deterring people from
Deterrent. Yeah, got it.
deterrence. Sorry.
Deterrence. It's okay. So, okay. So
So
he's
that
willing, like he's saying, I get it. I'd vote for now, but I'd get it.
right.
Real quick,
Nothing
I
so
still,
far
no.
that anybody's going to get killed from. I don't think.
Right. Yeah, nothing that puts us in like major danger or anything. I'm curious about something still.
Yeah.
Who in this group is believed to have accidentally added this journalist?
Well, Michael Walls did, who created the group. He added
Oh,
them.
okay, got it. Okay. And
So
I don't know him, so this doesn't help me.
right.
Okay.
So now
Someone
we
was
got
saying
more
he has no
people.
experience doing this. He shouldn't have been put in this position. This is proof
No,
that he, okay.
I don't know. I mean,
I don't know
unless
either.
they're
That's
talking
why I
about
asked.
some of his staff or something,
They're
but who
like, all he
knows?
knows how to do is like play the harp really well.
David played the harp. King David, he killed Goliath.
Oh,
Um,
there you go.
then they get into some stuff about we can easily pause, welcome other thoughts. Michael Walls says the trade figures are 15% of global and 30% of container. Talks about how it's difficult to figure out how much of it's actually European versus but goods bound for America. So it's not quite as he doesn't think it's quite as cut and dry that we don't have that much going through there, basically.
Okay.
And he said whether we pull the plug or not today, European navies do not have the capability to defend against the types of sophisticated anti-ship cruise missiles and drones that the Houthis are now using. So whether it's now or several weeks from now, it will have to be the United States that reopens these shipping lanes. Per the president's request, we are working with DoD and state to determine how to compel the cost associated, how to compile, not compel, how to compile the costs associated and levy them on the Europeans.
Okay.
And then this is Michael Walls again. As we stated in the first PC, we have a fundamental decision of allowing the sea lanes to remain closed, to reopen them now or later. We are the only ones with the capability, unfortunately. From a
Okay.
messaging standpoint, we absolutely add this to the list of horribles on why Europeans must invest in their defense. Okay.
Okay.
Pete Higgs, JD Vance says, Pete Higgs says, if you think we should do it, let's go. I just hate bailing Europe out again.
Okay.
Let's just make sure our messaging is tight here, and if there are things we can do up front to minimize risk to Saudi oil facilities, we should do it. And then Hegseth comes back and says, VP, I fully share your loathing of the
Oh my
European
gosh.
freeloading. It's pathetic. It's the real people that were going to
That's
get hurt.
really funny. That's
But
quite
Mike is
funny.
correct. We're the only ones on the planet on our side of the ledger who can do this. Nobody else is even close. Question is timing. I feel like now is as good a time as any. Given POTUS directive to reopen shipping lanes, I think we should go, but POTUS still retains 24 hours of decision space. And then there's something that says President was clear with a green light, blah, blah, blah. And then this is what everybody got their panties all up in a bunch about.
Okay. All right.
You ready?
Yeah.
This is what could cost us American lives right here by the
Okay.
Houthis and the
Okay.
blowfish. I just assume the blowfish are involved.
I feel like the blowfish are gentle, but go ahead.
Pete Hegseth sends out team update. Time now 11:44 Eastern Standard, I assume. Weather is
Yes.
favorable, just confirmed with CENTCOM. We are go for mission launch. 12:15 ET. So he's giving them a breakdown of when things are
Mm-hmm.
going to go. 12:15 Eastern Standard F-18s launched, first strike package. 13:45 trigger-based F-18 first strike window starts. Target terrorist is at his known location, so should be on time. Also strikes drone launch, MQ-9s, whatever. More
Okay.
14:10 more F-18s launched. That's the second strike package. 14:15 drones strike on target. This is when the first bombs will definitively drop, pending either trigger-based targets. And then at 15:36, F-18 second strike starts. Also, first sea-based Tomahawks launched. More to follow per timeline. Godspeed to our warriors. JD Vance says, "I will say a prayer for victory." Um, that's basically all I think.
So they chose to do it when? I missed the timeline.
That day, whatever day they were
Oh, okay. So so they
texting.
all decided, yeah, let's do it now.
Well, I
And
don't know if it was the next
well,
day. I can't tell exactly
soon
the
it wasn't
timeline on the
this wasn't a
text.
month. This wasn't a month down the road.
No, 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 no. It was within a few
So,
days or a day or something. I don't really know.
okay.
So that was the highly classified information.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not cool that we're sharing like the strike plan, the weapons used. I don't think we should be sharing any of that with
What do
anyone
you
outside
exactly
of
think that the Houthis are? Let's say that the
the
Houthis
Houthis
got
aren't going
that
to do
information.
anything. I don't like that. Our media can't be trusted. And I don't know anything about the paper that journalist is with. You said the
The
something
Atlantic.
Atlantic.
Hmm. The Atlantic Monthly.
I mean,
They're very conservative.
oh, they
No,
still. Oh, well,
they're not
someone said
conservative at
they,
all.
okay, thank you. I was going to say someone described them as having a contentious relationship um,
Oh, they're
with
complete and utter
conservatives.
libs.
Okay. So honestly, any journal, I just don't think that stuff should report. That could be reported afterwards if we want to. So here's what we did.
Hmm.
I don't think we should be reporting.
Well, the
I don't
journalist
think
didn't report anything. He finally took himself out of the editor. He finally took himself out of the chat
he was
because he
like, "Hey,
wasn't
I don't
supposed to
think I'm
be here.
supposed to be
I don't think he
getting
ever said
this."
anything. I don't know. I don't think anybody really knew. You know what I mean?
So who told that he was in there?
He did after the fact.
Okay.
And his whole point was this could happen to anybody. I could have been a Russian. And then I'd have
I could
known.
have been a blowfish.
And then I would have known. What would you have known exactly? F-18s were coming? Well, I knew that the day before because Trump posted it on X.
Oh, okay.
So
I
I
was
just
gonna
don't see the
say.
big deal here. I
Okay,
knew
the
they were going after the Houthis. And if
okay.
I knew, I feel like I just don't understand what all the
Todd,
drama's about.
Todd, admit it now. Were you in the group chat and you
They
never
got,
reported? Just you didn't self-report.
and they're right. These Houthis have some sophisticated equipment, but you know what they can't do? They can't aim it. They can't target it. This is the problem that all of these little tin pot terrorists have with sophisticated equipment is they
Okay.
can get some decent equipment, but they can't aim it. So they start shooting at our ships. And when I say they miss our ships, they miss our ships by 80 miles, 100 miles. They're not even in the realm of close to any
Okay.
of our ships, is the point. They
Okay.
just are not like,
They're
they're,
blindly playing Battleship
yeah.
with this equipment. Okay. So
I'm
this
not
is good
saying that
perspective.
Russia
I
and
don't
China
know.
and things aren't capable, but that's not what we're talking about. And I'm not
So
saying they're not getting some funding from Iran, but you still got these little. I mean, what are they going to do? Suddenly direct their camel in a different direction? I just don't see the.
I get it. However, just in principle, I think, okay, I looked it up. Mike Waltz, by the way, it's Mike Waltz, like with a TZ on the end.
Is
Mike
it?
Waltz.
Okay.
Mike Waltz is the National Security Advisor.
Okay.
Okay. So I think, and isn't Tulsi Gabbard, she is the National
That's what I thought
Security,
she was. I don't
she
know.
she's the National Security Director.
We need more. We need more
She's,
positions in our government.
I know, right? We need
I,
assistant
I
two
don't
and
think we've got enough.
the deputy two. Okay. Yeah, she's like the head of the National Security Council or something like that. Anyway, I'm sure they work together. Here's the thing. This guy works works in this position and I just think he's an I think he's a brainless idiot. I don't know anything about him, but I'm going to call him a brainless idiot. If you are talking about anything like anything having to do with your profession, anything to do with our government, our national security, whether it's consequential or not,
Well,
you're sending a message and you don't know who's in the freaking chat.
I should say that Signal is an encrypted app that is it's pre-installed on government
Okay.
phones.
But guess what?
Um,
If you include,
yeah,
someone on the outside in it, they're getting the message. I think he's an idiot. Whether it
I
was,
think I think a
whether he was
mistake was made. He
taking,
shouldn't have had him in the group
yeah,
chat. But beyond that,
yeah.
none of this makes any. Who cares about any of it?
Well, that's the thing. I think if this had been a lunch order, let's put it in
13 people
perspective.
didn't die like Benghazi,
Oh, right, right, right.
right?
I know. And the media was not outraged. But if this had been taking a lunch order for all these people, for JD Vance and
Hmm.
Pete Hegseth, and he'd been taking a
You'd have been
lunch order,
fine with it.
no, I think people still would have flipped out. That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
It's the principle of it that he in a group chat has someone in there who isn't supposed to be there. And it's
yeah,
like, I feel like it's like, you know, electronic communications 101. And if
yeah.
you work in our security department, you better be on the top of your game when it comes to knowing who you're texting. So I think it's more of the principle.
Okay, but clearly, do you not believe that this is clearly this was
Overblown.
somehow coordinated to embarrass the Trump administration? There is no
Oh,
way
definitely.
that
Yeah.
this was not a coordinated
I
hit.
just don't know,
I
like,
don't
if
know how.
he's doing it or some.
It
Yeah,
does
that's
make
the
you
thing.
wonder about Michael Walls.
Sure. Can he be trusted?
I don't know enough about it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to tell you. I looked at this and I think he was, hold on. He was previously okay, he was in the Army, U.S. Army Special Forces, war in Afghanistan, but I thought it said he served in the Bush administration as a defense policy director in the Pentagon and as a counterterrorism advisor to Vice President Dick Cheney.
Okay.
So I think that sheds a,
He's a Bush Cheney guy.
I mean, don't you think that that's means something
Certainly is
about
possible. Certainly makes you wonder.
where his loyalties might lie?
Hmm.
I'm just saying.
Makes you wonder.
Hmm.
Hmm. Things that make you go, hmm.
Hmm.
So, my only point is that this entire media kerfuffle is something that is worth ignoring completely.
Okay, got it.
They don't mean it. They
Yeah.
don't believe anything that they say. All this is a coordinated drive-by hit
Mm-hmm.
on the
Yeah.
Trump administration. That's all it
Sure.
is. So, um, you know, on the court thing,
Yep.
do you think so? Court. So we've watched Trump as he's come back, right? Call
Mm-hmm.
it the comeback.
Yeah.
In fact, you know what's interesting? Let me see if I
Hmm.
have this short little clip here that's super available. I'm going to get rid of that.
Okay.
It's Steve Bannon, and I keep telling you about this, and I keep thinking that people don't believe me
Okay. All
that
right.
this is out there. So let's watch Steve. It's like 20 seconds of
Okay.
Steve Bannon talking about Trump.
The lead story in the
Here we go. Lead story in the Daily Mail.
Mac Daddy, the lead story in the Daily Mail, is how experts have found a wrinkle in the Constitution that says President Trump can serve all the way to 2037. So, hey, just saying, we'll pull the Daily Mail talk.
What? A wrinkle? What is the wrinkle?
So just in case you left us are feeling good about your little signal chat tempest in a teapot that you stirred up, maybe Trump will be here till 2037 for you. He
I
seems to be
feel
growing younger.
I feel if that wrinkle existed, Obama would have taken advantage of that.
I don't know. I think I think what you're gonna find is that it's, although I don't know how they got to 37. I didn't read the article.
Okay.
I could see that if it being two consecutive terms, like that being the interpretation. So he could
Oh,
do now in 2028. I don't know the other. You know what I
okay.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
But it would make sense to me that when they did that amendment that the intent behind it was they were coming off Roosevelt, who was elected
Yes.
4 times in a row. So I think the intent was consecutive. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? But okay, regardless, that was just a little interesting
Okay.
aside.
Okay.
Do you think Trump, as he's, everything happens, it happens in 2020, happens with COVID, the stolen election, the whole
This
thing,
comeback. Mm-hmm.
and then all of the, all the lawsuits and all the indictments and all the mug shots and this, that, and the other, and everything Trump is going towards goes
Mm-hmm.
all through the campaign, and he gets his, and they're shooting at him. He tried to kill him twice. He almost dies
Oh
once,
gosh, true.
and he gets do you think, and then he gets in and he just comes out swinging. He's got executive orders. He's
Oh
ready for
yeah.
this. He's ready for that. Ready for this. Okay. Do you think that the courts trying to tie Trump up into process jujitsu, do you think that that has taken Trump by surprise?
Absolutely not.
No.
Mm-mm.
He had to expect it, right?
Yep.
I
Oh
mean,
yeah. I think he's thought out every scenario.
so
And
the,
not on his own, but with his people. Hmm.
so the question is, if you were Trump right now dealing with this,
Hmm.
if you were Trump or if I was Trump, what might you do? What might we be doing? And when I say what might we be doing, what might we be doing that the world at large isn't necessarily seeing or isn't paying attention to?
Oh,
You know what I'm
well,
saying?
yeah, I mean, I think we would be undermining, if not invalidating, uh, the powers of those positions.
Hmm.
Or, we talked last time about, if a judge isn't fulfilling his or her duties,
Yeah.
that they can't hold on to that seat. So, I mean, I don't know. I would just think that he'd be preparing ways to undermine or invalidate those positions.
Which would only happen probably through Congress, right?
I don't
Or
know.
what do you think?
I mean, that one way that we heard, the impeachment, I think the impeachment process has to go through Congress,
Hmm.
but it was something different about the lifetime
Good
appointment that we
behavior.
discussed.
That only needs,
Yes.
he thought, a majority
Mm-hmm.
in Congress.
Right.
That said, and
Yep.
this is
What
going
do
to
you
lead
think?
us this is going to lead us into something else that I want to
Okay.
talk about, which is um the I don't think Congress is Congress is just they're weak and they're ineffectual across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Congress is not going to do anything to any of these judges. I don't care if it takes a majority of one. I don't care if it took a quorum of four people there on a Saturday night at 3 in the morning. Congress isn't going to do anything to these people.
Right.
They're
Right.
just not. There's no way to look at the United States Congress over the course of the last, I don't know, 2 decades and think that they're going to be functional at all as a legislative body. They're just
Yeah,
not.
absolutely
They
not.
can't
There are a
pass a
few of
budget,
them who are on board and they're going to do stuff, but as a
but they won't be
whole,
able to get
no.
anything done.
Right. The gears aren't turning smoothly with all the pieces cooperate,
No,
like all the people cooperate.
no.
No, definitely
Deep,
not.
I think the deep
Okay.
state, the bureaucratic state,
Mm-hmm.
is too strong.
Okay.
It's just what it comes down to, and
Okay.
and it has infected too too many
Hmm.
people in Congress somehow. Maybe their
Got it.
daughter works for an NGO. Maybe whatever the
Oh,
case.
sure.
My point is that this web of
Hmm.
corruption and money,
Yes.
basically,
Hmm.
is it's a tangled web that I think
Hmm.
is stretching all over everywhere.
Hmm.
So people will say, and you'll hear this, that if Trump doesn't get, so Trump is doing all these executive orders,
Hmm.
and they say if Trump doesn't get, if this stuff is not codified into law by Congress,
Yeah.
then it's not going to matter because the next Democrat president's going to get in, and he's just going to reverse them all, just like Biden did, and just like
Okay.
Trump did to Biden, and
Well,
you're just
shoot.
going to get these presidencies alternating to some extent, presidencies back and forth, and they're just going to undo everything
Okay.
that's been done
It's
by
just going to be a
executive order,
series of executive
back and
orders,
forth, back and forth.
undoing executive orders. Okay.
Right.
Well,
That
that just sounds productive. I'm so optimistic about our future now.
well, what I wanted to say
Okay.
is
Yes.
that I actually think that they're man, I feel like my light's a little too bright.
Oh,
Oh,
there you go. Oh, wait. Did it brighten again?
maybe it went too
That looks good.
maybe I went too dark. Sorry guys. Um I know you're all staring at me.
Oh, no. We're on video. We want to look our best. I don't look at me today.
um so what I think
You want to,
is
yeah.
that I mean they are correct looking at this only through the terms of the legal process and how laws become an executive order. All of that, I think those types of people, they're correct from a process standpoint. Do you know what I mean?
They're
But I
correct
don't
from a
I
process standpoint.
I don't know that they're correct from I think that the way and possibly I'm not putting I think Trump probably already knows this. I'm not pretending that I'm educating Donald Trump on anything.
Okay.
I expect this is exactly how he's going about life is
Okay.
the other way it can last
Hmm.
is if you tighten up elections. That's huge. And he can do that via executive order probably for the most part.
Which he was doing this week.
Yeah, he'll do that. So um so if you can
We
get
should
a
be celebrating that.
if you can actually get elections to be somewhat free and fair,
Hmm.
then the other thing Trump is doing is going about dismantling the Democrat Party. But he's doing that by winning
Hmm.
over more and more and more of the
Yes,
American people.
I agree.
So how do you make it lasting change? Well, you make sure that for a generation your party's in power because you're doing things for the American people. You've cleaned up
Yes.
elections. You're doing what you've said you do, and
Yep.
you've got 60% of or more, 65% that's
Right.
buying into what you're doing because it's working.
Well, and you're making sound financial decisions for the country, and you're keeping the country safer than it was before.
Rooting
I
out
mean,
corruption, all those
right.
things.
I mean, he's doing it.
I guess my thought is
What's
I think Trump can do that. And I
so,
think
but how
MAGA
can
can do
he,
that. And I
but how
think
can he
that
fight? Okay.
he'll have to, Congress will simply lag. So we're going to see laws, we're going to see anything that actually codifies all of this. It's going to
Hmm.
lag, I don't know, 8 years behind where the people are and where Trump is and where everybody's at. Do you
But
know what I
what
mean?
about the election stuff?
Well, I think the election stuff he may get through. I don't know. I think that's going to be a combination of executive orders and working with the states
Okay.
to,
Because I mean, paper ballots was on his list.
yeah. And
And I'm thinking, that's huge.
he may
That is
just
changing how, I don't know. I don't know the percentage. Who's still doing paper ballots?
right.
It can't be many precincts across this whole
We do
country.
paper ballots.
You do?
I think I get like a piece of paper and I fill it in with a pen
Well, yes. However, you're feeding it into a machine, so I'm
that
not quite
counts it.
sure.
That's true.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure
It's
if
not
that
hand
makes a
counted.
difference. Not hand counted. So I guess we have paper ballots, but we feed them into a machine. So you
Although
just
they
have
could
to.
for the official count, they could feed them all through and then they could hand count them. I mean, there's no reason they couldn't for the official
Yeah,
count after.
sure.
So they have an idea and then they compare it to that and they say, oh, we're within 2%. That's good.
Nevada would tell us 4 or 5 months later what their
Right.
total.
Well, I don't know. I think Trump can deal with some of that. I expect he has
Okay.
a plan to do so, it seems to be.
Okay.
And I got to believe he had a plan to deal with these judges.
So yeah, so how can he handle the judge situation?
I think he ignores them.
Okay.
And I think to be honest with you, I think he probably is. what we're seeing with Trump that's different than his first term
Hmm.
is he has put together and put around himself a cabinet of people who are strong personalities and they also strongly align with what he is looking to do. And
Hmm.
then you got Elon Musk in there. And all of these people are pulling all this incoming fire away from Trump. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Oh yeah. Elon Musk has just been an enormous like target, if you will.
Oh, he's eating killed.
And you
Tesla's
almost and you almost don't hear anything about you don't
right.
hear media attacks on Donald Trump. It's all about Elon Musk. So is that what you're
But
saying?
it's not like Trump isn't out there. It's not like he's hiding like Biden.
Right.
It's just that he's hitting them with so much between the executive orders and this and his cabinets and all the things they're
Hmm.
doing that they just that no matter what they do they're playing catch up. Now the courts are tying things up with these temporary restraining orders that are nationwide and all this, and I think that Trump can just ignore those. um, I maybe it's smart not to make a big deal of that. Maybe it's smart that Trump's going through the channels and behind the scenes
Hmm.
just doing what he wants to do and continuing and saying full speed ahead.
Interesting.
In other words, if we're going to have a public constitutional crisis about it, we'll wait till we get to the Supreme Court level. That maybe makes some sense,
Sure.
you know?
Todd, this is interesting. I mean, if you look back on his first term, his first term, the
Yeah.
one that he actually got to serve, what do you think was the number one, wouldn't we all agree, what the number one obstacle to his effectiveness as president? What was the number one obstacle?
To his effectiveness,
Yeah.
well, it was I
I
think he
mean,
just got hit from all sides. He wasn't.
yeah.
It seemed like he wasn't quite ready for the deep state. It seemed like the GOP got in there and kind of
But
kneecapped
you
him with
said
some
it, but you
picks.
said it first. He was getting attacked from all sides. He was
Yeah,
getting in-house, he was being undermined, and the
leaks
media,
everywhere.
and the media just was relentless.
Yeah,
And I wonder if they just looked back and said, we need to handle that.
and
And
I
maybe they
and
did
I.
this intentionally.
You're probably right. I also think there's something in people who get
Musk was like, I
upset.
like the attention. Put me out there.
People like you are upset by the signal thing. Just think, it just looks like kind of a cluster, even if it's not
Yeah,
the end of the world for
it
national
looks
security.
irresponsible and stupid. Yeah.
And then I think what part of the reason that people have that is because they remember back to his first term and they remember all the leaks and it was constant what we were fighting. You know what I mean? From the
I
White
don't remember
House.
them specifically, but
So
anyway.
I but I think Trump's got a way to deal with them. I think that he's going about it. Again, I'm kind of
Mm-hmm.
defaulting back to
Mm-hmm.
I think Trump had this all planned out. I think that we're okay. We just got to trust the process, and some things are and things are way more screwed up than what than even what we understand.
Mm-hmm.
So to fix this is going to be it's going to be difficult. But Trump is he knows what he's doing.
Yep, you think he's on top of it.
I do. And
Okay.
here's something that happened. This is just a little list from
Okay.
Charlie Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
But this is investment pledges in the U.S. So you know how Trump will have these press conferences with people with these CEOs of these big multinational corporations, and they'll come and they say we're going to invest $500 billion in the U.S. in a new
Oh yeah,
plant. You know what I'm talking about?
I didn't know that. When I envision that, I picture him maybe talking about commitments to fund like the historically black university,
Oh
colleges and
no, these are
universities. Like
businesses
so
that
businesses.
are saying they have their and it's been multiple, but they'll have their press conference with Trump and they say we're going to bring in a five. In fact, Apple was one
Okay.
$500 billion we're going to invest in the United States into manufacturing in the United States,
In the US.
and this is
Hallelujah.
right down the road. So Hyundai 20 billion, UAE 1.4 trillion, Saudi Arabia 600 billion, Apple 500 billion. It just keeps going. And when you get
Okay.
to the end in the first 6 weeks of the
Hmm.
Trump administration,
Yes.
we have had all of these countries and companies all across the world commit to $3 trillion in new direct investment into America. Like
Nice.
that's just unheard of. And of
Yeah.
course it's not going to get the the press that it should. Of course, the press is going to be obsessed, or the media is going to be obsessed with Signalgate, obsessed with
Right.
this, obsessed with that, because they don't want to announce that, because that's exactly what Trump is talking about with his tariffs.
hmm
And I know that the markets are freaked out because he's kind of all over the board, but I think Trump's looking past the markets a little. He thinks, well, I can live with 3 to 6 months of market turmoil if I can get these trade deals and get these investments like I want them, and they'll
Yep.
see that I'm right on the back end. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so people got to remember that too. If there's some market turmoil out there, it's the
hmm
same thing. It's that same thing as that turmoil you feel in your stomach a little bit when you think that some poor little girl college student is getting picked up by ICE. Like
Oh my gosh.
there are, and I'm not saying that I'm immune to it. I'm only saying that there's a lot to be corrected, and we
Yeah.
just it's nothing. And even with the chat thing, even with the signal chat thing, nothing is going to be perfect.
Okay.
And it's okay to say they screwed up. They shouldn't have had this
Yeah.
guy, and of course they shouldn't have.
Absolutely.
But also, it's not deserving of 1/1000th of what the media has given to this story.
Got it.
You know what I mean? So you got to keep both in and just say, okay, all right, good things are happening all across the board.
Did Trump mention those dollar amounts of the investments
He has it,
in
but
his State of the Union in that kind of addressing?
he might. I think he probably did. I can't remember. It's
I
hard to
don't
remember
remember.
a Trump.
It
I
is,
mean,
but
he's
it
so good, but he wanders all over.
right. And you, well, and it was an organized speech. It just covered a lot of ground.
Yeah,
But
I
I
just couldn't keep
think,
track of it all. I mean,
right. I just don't recall it.
hour
And
and
the
a half of
way
Trump just banging out wins.
Charlie, I know
I can't.
Charlie Kirk's list there, and you reading it really struck me. It's like that's huge, great news, and
Huge.
one would think that our media would be celebrating that.
What do you think? What do you think about? Is still the kerfuffle with Canada? It will not go away.
I haven't
There's
heard anything new about Canada.
you haven't.
I have not.
Mark Mark Carney,
You're
who
closer
is
to, yeah.
yeah, I am closer to Canada.
He's
You
the
don't
new prime minister, right?
this clip of a speech that Mark Carney gave, he's the new prime minister. Well, here's what I think. I don't exactly know how Canada works. Okay.
Right.
I'm not sure what the governance of the 51st state exactly looks like,
I I think
but
that I think there's a parliament
it's like a
and I think there's a
parliament.
prime minister. I
Somehow he's
thought.
acting prime minister, and like 180 people total voted. And at some point, it's got to go before the country, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. I don't know. I don't understand any of that, but whatever, eh? Whatever Canada wants to do.
Whatever, A. Okay.
Mark Carney, I don't know where he was born in
Yeah,
England.
you said he
Anyway,
was not from.
I'm not convinced that he's the real deal. I think he was installed by the globalists. That's what seems to be happening. But listen to this speech. This is a 2 minute clip, or a little less than 2 minute clip that he gave,
Okay.
talking about the United States, and I think it's somewhat shocking. So let's see what you think.
Okay.
Our biggest challenge as a country is becoming the most urgent. Over the coming weeks, months, and years, we must fundamentally reimagine our economy. We will need to ensure that Canada can succeed in a drastically different world. The old relationship we had with the United States, based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperations, is over.
It's over.
Oh my
What
God.
exactly the United States does next is unclear. But what is clear is that we, as Canadians, have agency. We have power. We are masters in our own home.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nous sommes maîtres chez nous. We can control our destiny. We can give
see
ourselves
about that.
much more than any foreign government, including the United States,
It's a
can
Saddam
ever
Hussein thought.
take away. We can deal with this crisis best by building our strength right here at home. It will take hard work. It will take steady and focused determination from governments, from businesses, from labor, from Canadians. We will need to dramatically reduce our reliance on the United States. We will need to pivot our trade relationships elsewhere. And we will need to do things previously thought impossible at speeds we haven't seen in generations.
That's encouraging.
But we can make ourselves more productive and therefore more competitive. We can break down internal trade barriers. We can build a stronger and more resilient economy. And that's what I'm squarely focused on as your Prime Minister.
Huh.
Elected by 180 people. Okay.
Hey, no, he got 89% of the vote, so
89% of like 200 people.
so okay.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
Canada's declared war on us.
I guess so. Like an
guess.
economic war. Like we're just gonna
And
have
then
to work harder than we've ever worked before.
I saw a
And
graphic that showed like
yeah.
Canada's tanks to our tanks. It was the funniest. They have like
Oh, no.
3 battleships. It
Oh
just
my
the whole
gosh.
thing. It's so ridiculous. The whole thing
Yikes.
is. But they're heat big mad. You know,
Right.
Canada. Apparently, there's a lot of Canada pride. Who knew? Um,
I mean, I feel like there is, but I'm not sure that the
I
people are behind Carney there. They weren't behind Trudeau.
I
I
don't know that
don't
they're
know
going
that
to
they're
stay
behind.
behind him. I'll tell you that.
There are a lot
Because
of Americans who think Canada's fabulous and who really loved Trudeau. So
you know what Joe Rogan said? They were having one
what
of
did he
the
say?
what was that UFC fights?
Yeah.
Um, that he does, and they were having
Mhm.
one in Montreal, and he said, "I'm not going." He said, "I'm done going to Canada." He said, "I'd rather go to
Really?
Russia than Canada."
Oh my gosh, Joe Rogan
In
is
case you wondered if there's
so
been a sea change in
he is
American
so
culture.
red-pilled. Who knew? Who saw that coming?
This is Doug Ford, quick 14 seconds. He's
Hmm.
the premier of Ontario, which is the one that kind of is around Michigan, north and,
Yes.
yeah, east of us.
Not, but I can assure you one thing. We're going to make sure that we inflict as much pain as possible to the American people without inflicting pain on the Canadian population. And that
So he's going to inflict as much
Without
pain as he can on the American people. That was
without um without that's what he said. Without inflicting pain on the
without
in
having
what
any
way?
leverage at all.
What I was gonna say, what kind of what is the context? Do you know what kind of pain does he
I
want
don't
to inflict
know.
upon us? And who, I'm sorry, who gets out on the mic and says that?
It just seems it's all very strange.
It is strange. What are they planning to do?
Uh, they're going to crumble. Is what their economy's going to crumble, and
But I wonder, like, who's he talking to when he says that?
Ontario, I guess. I don't. I told you that I think there's a scenario where Trump picks off all of Canada except Ontario and Quebec, and he says,
Oh my
"Okay, you
gosh.
guys are Canada," and that would still be a big country. I'm not saying it wouldn't be. It might be as big as Ukraine. I don't know. I'm not
It's
sure
so
how big Ukraine
crazy.
is, but
Um,
um, then we get none of the libs. Not none, but we don't get
right,
the lib provinces.
right. Well, and people could move if they want to.
Yeah, self-deport.
People could, people can
So,
move. People can learn to code and they can move.
so the Canada thing is still percolating out there. I just think that's kind of funny.
I just don't know, like who gets out there and says we just want to inflict as much pain as we can on the Americans. Like that to me sounds like a declaration of some sort.
And JD Vance and his wife,
Hmm.
what was her name? Usha?
Um, Usha, I think.
I think,
Yes.
yeah. They were in Greenland this week.
Oh,
So,
they taking a vacation?
yeah, just
What were they
greasing the
doing?
wheels a little, I think.
Do we know? They were scoping it out.
They're just talking to people. I think, yeah. They that who knows? Who I wasn't there wasn't a ton of public stuff about it. They were up there and people knew they were up there, but I'm not positive who they were meeting with.
Okay.
So,
Interesting.
Trump is continuing on with that.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
yeah.
Bombing Yemen, maybe. Well, actually, now like that the
Not was it?
did
Yeah,
we
yeah,
do
it
it
is
yet?
Yemen. Yeah, we
We
bombed a bunch. We bombed some of the Houthis. I don't know if we still are.
okay.
Um, I just don't know because
Okay.
who can keep up with all the Houthis? These little pirates. We let them
The
shut down
Blowfish are
trade.
like
I
5 to 1,
can
four to
understand
one.
Trump being like, "We're opening this. Screw this. Like we're the only ones who can, and we're going to do it right now." You know how he is.
Yes,
Like just
I guess.
needs to be done, and that's kind of how he thinks about things. When we're
Yep.
the only ones who can do them, you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
I,
like
I just,
what are we waiting for?
yeah, I just think he's very. Did you see that Snow White movie's getting a lot of hate? That's kind of right up your alley, right? That's the cultural side of Todd's world.
I love the Snow White coverage right now.
Yeah,
It's so great. It's so, so great. You know what? I have something I'd love to share on that.
you do.
I do. It'll only take me a moment to get there. Um, do you plan to see it? Is anyone in your
No,
family excited about it coming
I
out?
don't know if I have seen a single one of the live action remakes of Disney
Oh,
movies.
okay. Gotcha.
I can't think of which one I would have seen.
Yeah, I've seen a few. I've seen the Cinderella was very good.
I didn't see that.
Um, I saw the what do you call
I
it?
didn't see The
Oh,
Lion King.
The Lion King. I saw part of The Lion King. It was a weird feed, like we couldn't, it wasn't smooth, and so we were kind of
Pirating it. You're on Napster
no,
back
no,
in the
not at all. It
90s.
was kind of like a no, it was hard to, it was glitching or something. But I saw the Jungle Book live action. That was
Oh, I forgot
good.
they did that one. Yeah. They're talking about a Tangled one.
Well, of course. But I mean, I hope they don't wreck it. That's really like the
See, to me, they're all like it's the death of creativity and all that made Disney Disney all across the board. Like just write new stories, make new things. I don't
right.
I get sick of this corporate money grab like rehash of things. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
It's not
they're out of
real.
they're out of ideas. They're trying to, rejuvenate, but it's like in rejuvenating, creating new fans and things like that. I don't think you need to change anything. And they're just changing everything, which wrecks it for
Yeah.
those who love, the pure whatever. But, this article came out about this someone named Daniel Brett Stark. I don't know who he is, but I happened to read his
Sounds like he's from Game of Thrones.
House Stark wants to weigh in on the woke Snow White live action. But he was just talking about how people are criticizing the past, past version of something
Hmm.
because they're looking at it through a current cultural lens.
Okay.
And it's unfair, basically saying it's unfair to do that. Not just from the woke perspective. I don't think anywhere in his article, his review and
Yeah,
kind of
I think that's
analysis,
fair.
I don't think that he even uses the term woke. We all have
Right.
joked about it, but he talked about how Snow White came out in 1937.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And that to really understand it, you have to know about 1937 audiences. And he talked about the Great Depression. A quarter of the population was unemployed. The
Hmm.
Dust Bowl had wiped out farmland. Second recession hit, spiking unemployment again, right before Snow White hit theaters. And then and
World
he even
War
talks
II
about,
fears are out
I was
there.
going to say, he even talks about around the world what's happening. It was a really dark time for people in the US. And so he says for depression era audiences, this moment where Snow White is she has had to run, she's had to flee for her life. She has nothing. She's
Right.
in the woods and has lost everything and she's despairing and she's crying and says she's hit rock bottom. She's terrified, alone, and hopeless. I mean, it's just a cartoon, and we watch it now. And we're like, oh, poor, like, Snow White in the woods. But what he says is for Depression era audiences, that moment would have hit hard
Hmm.
for them. Um, that these feelings of hopelessness were deeply felt in the 1930s, and that the worst thing that we can remember is COVID, and it doesn't even compare
Yeah.
to what the people in the US were going through at that time. So at the end, I'm going to skip forward to the end because it was just absolutely beautiful. I loved, I haven't, I usually don't make it through a long-winded analysis of a movie, but this was so well done. And I was fascinated by the really kind of the deep description of that era. So He says here, can I read you the end?
Please. I'm
He
on
said,
pins and needles.
he says, Snow White is about a young woman who endures unimaginable hardship, faces death head on, and still manages to keep smiling. For audiences who had lived through the Great Depression, her journey was more than just a fairy tale. It was a reminder that even when everything falls apart, hope and hard work can still win in the end. People who claim Snow White is just some outdated damsel in distress story aren't trying to understand the film based on the context of its time period. If they did, they'd see that Snow White isn't about a helpless girl at all. It's about someone who loses everything, faces unimaginable hardship, and still manages to keep going, keep smiling, and keep believing that better days are ahead.
Hmm.
And he mentions the prince because they're
Interesting.
like, oh, this prince and blah blah. And
Yeah.
and this guy says, if you watch Snow White, the story is not about the prince at all. Like
No.
she doesn't, she isn't thinking about the prince. She's just trying to live as positively as she can and kind of make the most
Okay.
of this situation. And I was just like, damn. I mean, I got to say, I have to agree.
It struck a nerve with you. A
It
truth
did.
nerve.
I'm a Snow White fan, and I've always just thought it to be a really sweet story. She's so lovable. I mean, she's completely innocent and pure, and she's wonderful. And I like how simple she is. I don't think that she's one dimensional. But now, a character developed now has to have a backstory and trauma and
Hmm.
a goal of this and a conflict
Fairy
over
tales were a
here.
little
And
simpler.
yeah, it was so
Well,
simple. And I
kinda. I mean, you had
kinda,
that. You had the evil stepmother
yeah.
who sends somebody out to kill you. That's pretty traumatic.
It is traumatic, but now like that's really like that's just I don't know. It's
That's
heightened
interesting.
now,
I was never
magnified
a
and
big Snow White fan,
sure.
but
It's super old. I mean, it's like it's very cheesy by
yeah,
today's standards, but
and
but I love
it
her.
was just wasn't. I'm a guy. It
Plus, she's
wasn't
a
the
brunette.
princess.
There's this whole Barbie era, and all the princesses started becoming blondes. And I always liked Snow White because she was the OG and she was a brunette.
I just thought,
Sorry, go ahead.
by the time once Disney came out with The Little Mermaid, then I felt like, okay,
Mm.
now Ariel's a princess I can get down with.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic.
You
One of
know,
the best.
so.
So,
But
but I like that
I
analysis.
thought that Disney, this is one of the, I think it's the one of the producers' sons going off on somebody
Okay.
because this whoever this person was, they were upset because they said his dad flew to New York City to reprimand a young actress. This was and any words on this because it's creepy as hell and uncalled for. People have a right to free speech. Shame on your father because she was with all her woke opinions, and this wasn't just lately. This was what, a year ago or something.
This is yeah, when it was first like announced
Yeah,
that she was doing yeah, this is the
and
the
she's trying to
main
sabotage it,
yes,
right?
the star of the film,
I just threw
whatever
something.
her name is.
I'm like David Letterman. I'm just throwing things.
It's the last time
Um,
we're gonna see her. Oh, that's right. He does Chuck stuff.
but this producer's kid is what I
Hmm.
think it is. Says,
Okay.
you really want, this is interesting.
Hmm.
Says, you really want to do this? Yeah, my dad, the producer of an enormous piece of Disney IP, intellectual property,
Uh-huh.
with hundreds of millions of dollars on the line, had to leave his family to fly across the country to reprimand his 20-year-old employee for dragging her personal politics into the middle of promoting the movie, for which she signed a multi-million-dollar contract to get paid and do publicity for. That is called adult responsibility and accountability, and her
Hmm.
actions clearly hurt the film's box office. Free
100%.
speech does not mean you're allowed to say whatever you want in your private employment without repercussions. Tens of thousands of people worked on that film, and she
Hmm.
hijacked the conversation for her own immature desires at the risk of all the colleagues and crew and blue collar workers who depend on that movie to be successful.
Well said.
Narcissism is not something to be coddled or encouraged.
Well said.
Yeah, you think so?
Oh yeah, I think that hits it on the head.
Yeah.
Because yeah, she came out. It was like, what do you do? What do you do in the film for?
See, to me,
She did hijack
to
it.
me, I saw that and I thought, I understand you feeling that way. Except everything you're complaining about, your dad, all of
Hmm.
Disney brought this all on themselves.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
You're
That's
the
true.
ones who decided we got to go woke. We got to do this. We got to pay no attention to traditional, you know, cultural values out there. We've got
Yeah.
to go woke. In fact, we got to redo Snow White. And we're
And
going to
she has
get
to
some
be
crazy actress to do it.
right. Who is a woman of color?
Yeah, no.
Because her name's
This
Snow White. She can't be white. Like,
right.
that would just be wrong.
So no, I think okay, I understand. I'm not saying he necessarily makes a bad point. I'm only
Mhm.
saying you brought this all on yourself. This is
But
like
you're speaking
complaining about a
broadly.
person that you hired to do exactly what remember that thing that Donald Trump has in his rallies where
Mhm.
is it the story about the snake or something, or
I
it's
don't know.
like you knew I was a snake, and because the guy he like bites the guy in the end. Remember he tells that
Oh,
story at different times. I can't remember exactly what it
I feel
is,
like I've heard this story, but I haven't been to a rally, so
but it's the same exact thing. Like you knew you
sure.
had a snake. In
Okay,
fact,
so
you
here,
wanted to get down and roll around with the snakes. That's how productive you thought it would be. You thought this will make us more money. We'll sell our soul for this. Or maybe you didn't even think it would make more money. Maybe you just wanted to ruin a society.
okay, but here's the thing. Yes, I hear you 100%, but when you say this is what they asked for, they, it's not necessarily this guy's dad, the
Yeah,
producer of the film. He probably doesn't feel that way. He's
maybe.
not the one driving this in Disney. It's the higher ups who have been asking. Now, if the higher ups were disappointed in her commentary,
Yeah.
during the making of the film, that would be ridiculous. But obviously, if this guy felt like it was jeopardizing, then I think he's probably has his feet on the ground and just wants to make a good movie.
But if I'm this chick, I'm like, because remember, this happened a couple of years ago, right?
Yes,
So this
it
is
was a
like,
while ago.
this is peak woke.
Yes, true.
And if I'm this Snow White
Peak woke.
actress, like I'm like, why are you coming out here? Your entire company is jumping on this bandwagon and promoting this across the board. We got
Hmm.
LGBTQ in everything. I
Yep.
thought that's the whole point.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I just don't like they think that there's some way to get the one without the other and you don't.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. And I think too, I can't remember the details because it has been a while. I think too that when she came out and spoke about the film, I think she just went too negative and too far. She could have come out, we might not have agreed with her statement, but she could have said, this movie was from the 30s and its original was fitting at the time. She could have said that, fitting at the time. Today, if we're to produce Snow White today, it's going to be a little different. We're going to
yeah.
mix it up. We're going to modernize it. She could have made it sound like, hey, we have a fresh take on Snow White instead of bashing the foundation of the story. You know what I'm
But the
saying?
writers already had. I mean, she came in on a script in which they'd already done all of that.
They had
My
done
my only point, like this entire now they changed it supposedly because they had such bad response on so many angles,
okay.
and what I've heard is that it's just a mess of a movie because
Yeah,
they
it's a mess.
originally had this whole woke plot, and
Yeah.
then
Oh
nobody
my
liked
gosh.
it anywhere. Already nobody likes it, and then they tried to pull in some of the
Yeah.
original, and it's just this hodgepodge of just horrible
Yeah.
storytelling
Hmm.
from what I've read.
Right.
And that would the only reason I'm defending the actress is I'm saying you wrote an entire woke script. She knew what you wanted,
Hmm.
you got what you wanted, and now you're bitching about it. That's what I feel like. Now you might not have realized what came with everything you wanted.
Right.
You might
Right.
not have realized that that was laid in and part of the deal, but
Hmm.
you should have,
Sure.
you know?
You know how else you can tell it's not doing well and it's just a disaster? Is that on trailers, they are showing the finale.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, they're showing finale scenes. I'm watching this. Everyone's in white. The entire
It
village is
doesn't even make any
dancing
sense.
together, and I'm like, you're showing the end. What are you showing the end of the movie for? Like they're trying to make it look like this great experience, and I'm like, you guys have just they're gonna lose. I don't know if it's hundreds of millions. I was just reading about the money that was put into this and how much it
I
made. It
think
made like,
over 200 million they put into it, right?
yeah, and I think what it made 40 some million the opening weekend.
Something.
And everyone was talking about how great that was. They're like, oh no, it's on
No.
track to lose tens of
Their
millions,
only hope
maybe
is that they
100
can
million.
peddle this to the internationally.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
But I don't know how international audiences are with horrible stories either. Like it seems to me they'd still want a decent story, but I don't know.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
just wild.
but I don't know. That's out
How do
there.
you feel about the CGI dwarves?
I didn't pay that much attention to them.
So I mean,
I saw something.
they were gonna hire like
I think they
little
should have hired
people.
little people. I don't know why they didn't.
Well, because I think so Peter Dinklage, Tyrion
Yeah,
Lannister,
he's a
I
fabulous
think
actor.
he spoke out. I think he spoke out about it because he felt like this is like it was typecasting, and I'm thinking these people would be
That's what they
I
are. They're
if I
dwarves. You're
was
a dwarf, dude.
I know if I was a dwarf, I'd love to play a dwarf in a remake of
Yeah.
Snow White, as long as it wasn't this production. But yeah, I think he spoke out, and then they ended up CGIing the dwarf.
That's stupid.
Just
They should
like-
just use. They should just use little people.
I agree.
I mean, there's not probably. I mean, you look at
They're trying to
what's his
please
name?
everyone.
Tyrion
Peter Dinklage.
Peter Dinklage. He's a
I
fabulous
might,
He's a
I might
fabulous
be,
actor.
I know. I might be presenting this
So,
inaccurately. I apologize if I'm
and
way off,
maybe
but I
we
thought
only
that's what
got to
happened.
know him because he was somewhat typecast in Game of Thrones as this like dwarf kid, but he took that role if it was a typecast and he turned it into like an amazing
Amazing.
opportunity. Yeah.
Well, and we knew him
We
as
all
Miles Finch in Elf. He was like one of our favorite characters in the Elf movie.
and so now you're not
Miles Finch.
appreciating
It's
him.
Miles Finch. It's Miles Finch,
He's not funny because he's a dwarf in Game of
No,
Thrones.
he's
He's just a
fantastic.
fabulous character, such a
Yep.
well-written character and a great actor. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? I really felt like
Absolutely.
he did such a great job in Game of Thrones. And
Absolutely.
why couldn't the dwarves in Snow White have had the same opportunity?
I know. I
I don't
agree.
understand that. I mean,
I don't know. It's
let I
bizarre.
if there's not there can't be tons of stuff for dwarf actors, and why wouldn't you? Yeah, I don't like
Yeah.
it.
So I want to say one more thing on
It's
this.
another thing where they're hurting the very people that they're trying to
Right.
help. It's stupid.
It's
It's all
stupid.
over the place. It's like the trans stuff with these kids where they'll put
Yeah.
them on these sexual, that they sterilize them and everything else, and it's all in the name of helping them. And you're like, what? You know,
I know. It's like they're trying to please everyone. They can't please anyone that way. And um
evil folds in on itself.
it's yeah,
You know what I mean? Constantly.
it's a disaster. So I do want to say one more thing for people who are on TikTok. I know we don't want to promote TikTok because they will absolutely not let us post anything.
We get
But
800 to 900 views, and I'll get 3 or 4 new followers every time. So I'm like, whatever,
okay.
slow but sure, right?
There's a guy on TikTok who I absolutely love. I follow him. His name is Gino the Ghost.
Okay,
Gino with a G. I think he's a Detroit guy.
cool.
He lives in Detroit. He's hysterical. I think he's semi-lib, whatever. But his
He's still alive.
his recent
I always
report.
think everybody's dead all the time. I realized that in the last podcast. But Sean Connery was dead, to be fair. He
Was
died in
he?
2020.
He did?
Go ahead, yeah.
Wow.
He's tried
Anyway,
to slap COVID.
Gino
I don't know. It might have nothing to do with COVID.
Gino the Ghost posted something about he posted a review of the movie. He said he went to see the movie simply so he could mock it, and he said, and it did not disappoint. And his report on the movie is a riot. He absolutely roasts Gal Gadot's performance.
It's worth listening. It's
He
worth
said, yeah, he says, Gal Gadot, don't go see this like piece of
Gal
shit
Gadot.
movie.
She's the wicked stepmom,
Yeah.
right? The queen or
Mhm.
whatever.
The
Yeah.
queen. But he's
He didn't like
hysterical.
her.
He says she's a terrible actress.
She
It's
might be.
really funny. He's funny.
She's super
Um,
hot as Wonder Woman.
I know. I said,
But I'm not sure Wonder Woman like requires the best acting in the world.
well, I know. We talked about it here, and my boys said that her acting reputation online is in the toilet. Like everyone
Okay.
says she's the worst, and I'm like, I've never thought of it. And I thought about my reaction to her. Now, I'm a woman. I'm a straight woman,
You are.
but Gal
It's news to
Gadot,
me.
but Gal Gadot, Gal Gadot is so captivatingly beautiful that when she's
Yeah.
on screen, I seriously am just in awe of her beauty. And I told the boys, I said, my guys, I said, I haven't paid attention to her acting at all. She's so freaking gorgeous. And and we were laughing about it. I'm like, I have to pay attention.
I'm surprised
But
they didn't feel the same way.
oh yeah, they think she's beautiful, but they're like, oh yeah, her acting's terrible.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is it really? So it's if you look it up, there's all kinds of jokes about
Okay.
what a bad actress she is. And
Well,
her accent also disguises her poor acting.
it does.
They said very often an accent can kind of like you can coast on it for a little while. It's catching up with her apparently. This
Well,
movie's probably the end of her.
it's all over.
Unless they come out with another Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman 7.
It's all over for Gal Gadot.
I know.
I don't know.
We could just look
I
at
haven't
her.
seen
Isn't she
her. I
pretty?
can't think of much that I've seen her in besides Wonder Woman stuff. I mean, I'm sure
Yeah,
there are
shoot, that
things.
was
I just can't think of anything.
she was in yeah, I can't remember either. I guess that was Wonder Woman.
You know, you're speaking of people being blinded by beauty.
Hmm.
Your teacher. I still am baffled constantly by all of these teachers. These like normal like mid-30 pretty teachers hooking up with these like 15-year-old students, and
Oh
it's
my
all
gosh,
over the
what is it
place.
happening again?
I just see it all the time.
It's so
Like there was
bizarre.
one where a teacher was she like had these 15-year-old or I 3 15 16-year-old boys wear scream masks while they were um having relations with her.
What? What?
That like that came out this week. I can't remember what
That
state. And
that
then
is
there's another
effed
one like
up.
in Louisiana,
Like
Franklin Police
multiple? I'm sorry,
Department.
I gotta know. Like
Yeah,
multiple at once?
three. Yeah,
That is messed up.
these three underage
Good,
minors of some
good
sort,
God.
boys, I guess. I just don't. It's just
Whoa. I
this is
don't get
just
it.
like it's this percolating thing out there that doesn't seem. It not only is it not going away, doesn't it? It feels to me like it's picking up a little bit.
I think that's just news reports and it's a really like appalling but juicy.
So it goes everywhere.
I think it's just yeah, that news spreads, but it's the same with male teachers. Male teachers hooking up with underage girls and
Yeah.
we had one here in Jacksonville who's in serving 10 years in jail. Um really well known in the community. I just think
You think it's just part of the culture?
I just think it's people.
That kind of sexual revolution back in the 60s, whatever.
Okay.
And as it rolls forward and as it's kind of blown over
Sure.
traditional guardrails,
Mm-hmm.
traditional moral, the
I
William J.
guess.
Bennett Book of Moral Virtues. You're not getting a
Oh,
lot of
right.
that, right?
Right.
And it's kind of
Yeah,
rolling over
true.
that. And is this just part of, is it like the trans thing? And it's all part of the after effects of this seismic thing that we messed with that we shouldn't
Sure.
have. I don't
Yeah,
know. You know what
maybe
I mean?
maybe. I mean, I think people I think I mean, we'd call them predators.
I
So,
guess.
I guess anyone. Okay, let's talk about this. Teachers, male, female, pastors, priests,
Hmm.
anyone who's in a position of authority
Right.
who then manipulates a young person into a sexual situation.
It's a predator.
I I think it's really, what's that?
It's a predator, right?
A
No.
predator. I think it really is a mental like a warped I think it's a warped sexual act. And I said so I think
Yeah.
anyone who just I don't know, I think they just aren't looking at things properly.
Well, I mean, I guess that makes sense. As you get wrapped up in a certain kind of sin or a certain kind of deviance, I guess it makes sense that
Yeah.
the further you kind of go into that, there's the
Yeah.
potential, and this
Besides,
could even
scream
be,
masks, three guys?
yeah, I
What?
saw this.
I'm a little stunned, but I'm sorry.
That's the
I'm a
thing. The
little
things you hear,
stunned.
you're like, and so what happens is, I guess
Ah,
it's kind of like porn, right? Where they say where it
yeah.
just gets you have to get more and more hardcore as you go on. And so as a
Right.
culture, it kind of feels like that, I guess,
Yeah.
where where things as they're as these
My
incidents are
gosh.
flowering and taking place, they seem to be a little more hardcore and more you know what I mean? A little more deviant,
Mm-hmm.
a little more
Mm-hmm.
things are just branching out
Right.
and
Right.
again, I've never that I know of have had anything like that here in our local school district. Well, at least that I know of. I shouldn't be, I don't know,
Right. Nothing,
but
yeah.
nothing that
Nothing that
I've
was
heard
made
about,
public. Right.
or at least that's
I
lodged
mean,
in my brain.
I was
Now,
gonna say, I
I'm
think
not
it's
a
a
solid for
tiny,
that.
I think it's a tiny, tiny percentage. I really do, but I think that we hear about those stories because they're shocking.
Yeah.
What was that? What was that? Was it Netflix? I don't think it was Netflix. I think it was Hulu or something. Had a limited series show about a teacher and a student. Did you see
Oh,
that? I
that was
can't remember.
Hulu.
Yep.
Yeah, I
We
watched the first
we watched
episode
it.
or two. It just didn't. It wasn't anything like I wasn't so morally offended that I had to try. It wasn't like that. It just
No, it
it
didn't.
didn't strike me enough to keep
Yeah.
on going. What'd you think of it though?
It was well done.
Who was the
It
chick who
real
was in it again?
I
Trying
can't
to
remember
I
her
can
name.
picture her.
I could picture her too. She
She was
has
on
a little bit of an
House of
Anna.
Cards, wasn't she? Wasn't she the reporter on House of Cards that had her little
Yes,
fling with Kevin Spacey?
that's him. Yep.
Yeah, I just
Or
can't
that's
remember her
her.
name.
I can't remember either. She has kind of an Anna Kendrick look to her, but she's
Yeah.
someone different. But yeah, um, in the story, she was not the pursuer.
No.
The student was. She ends up paying the price for it.
And how
I
old
say,
was the student?
he was like a senior in high school,
Okay.
a junior or senior. I feel
So
like he
not
was
what we would consider.
17-ish.
I know that technically, I think in most
Yeah.
states that's still it's illegal for the position of authority thing, right?
Yes. Yep.
But it's within the like Michigan 16 for the age of consent if
I
it's not a
Yeah.
position of
Is it
authority kind of
16 or
thing.
16 or 17 here? Yes, if you're not a teacher.
But if you're a teacher or a pastor or something like that,
Sure.
right?
Like a doctor or whatever.
Yeah. Then it's not
But
even because you can get into like other issues, even if they're regular like older like 25-year-olds if you're a pastor and they could be
right.
some kind of manipulation I think they considered or something.
Exactly.
I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, I don't know. But it became this big conversation and my Patrick watched it, wanted me to watch it. We watched it. He wanted to discuss the age of consent
Okay.
because he wanted to know because she got in trouble in it. So what I started to say is she's the only one who suffered like the consequences, but she suffered legal consequences. But the kid,
Hmm.
young adult, almost adult, suffered psychological consequences from it. So it was like,
What
I
did he
think,
suffer psychological consequences from?
well, I mean, I'm sorry, someone that young doesn't understand their own heart.
Okay.
They don't understand.
I wondered whether it
They
was the
can't
relationship or
distinguish.
whether it was all of the hullabaloo that came after. I
Oh no, I
wasn't
think
sure to which you were
that's what
referring,
I
you know
mean.
what I
Like the
mean?
relationship, you mess with the if you're a teacher and you mess with the heart of a teenager, like you could really be changing the course of
I
that
gotcha.
person's
I
future
understand what you're
relationships. And
saying.
I thought the show did a really good job of provoking the thoughts of the impact on both sides. But we talked a lot about the age of consent because Patrick feels like
Where'd
it's
you
just
end up?
arbitrary.
Oh,
Well, we just talked about how it's arbitrary. Our
mhm.
law says you have to be 21 to drink.
That's
You,
arbitrary.
it's arbitrary. You have to be 16 to drive.
Well,
You
almost
have,
all laws are arbitrary. I mean,
I know
55 miles an hour. It's all
they are.
arbitrary.
And I just had never really looked at our laws that way. And Patrick is like, he likes to think about, those
Yeah.
kinds of things. And so I was saying, like, he says, well, how old does someone have to be before they truly can? And I'm like, man, I mean, I will say this. I don't think that a young man really can make, I'm going to say, full, well thought out judgments about those kinds of things till his brain's fully developed, which they say is 25. And you can't say you shouldn't be engaged in sexual activity until you're 25. Well, that's
No.
not going to work. So it was just it provoked a lot of interesting conversations around here.
We've had those types of conversations too, because I wonder,
Right.
you know.
Oh, because we've talked about like over under.
Well, but yeah, when you think of it from a terms of a teenage guy, 'cause I'm a guy.
Right.
I was a teenage guy,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and so if I think about being 16 years old and
Mm-hmm.
wanting to bang one of my teachers, I feel like I would have been fully capable of making that decision. Now,
Right.
maybe that's not a fair recollection. I'm not sure. That's just what I feel like.
I
You know what
think
I
like
mean?
you think that you would have been, but I don't
That's
think
what
you
I've
really
always thought. I've always
understand.
felt like that. Like if you take me back to me at 16,
Right.
I can remember how I'd have felt, and I think, yeah, that's how I'd have felt. I'd have been like,
Right. Yeah.
well, whatever I would have been like, I'd have been like, let's go.
Right. I believe that. And here's the thing too.
Like
Young
I had a
girls,
fake
you
ID
take
since I was a couple fake IDs since I
okay.
was 16 years old,
Okay.
and I just didn't drink in high school. Now,
Okay.
as soon as high school got over, I started drinking a lot. I didn't pay
Okay.
any attention to the age, but
Okay.
for high school, I
Hmm.
had the opportunity and just decided not to,
Okay.
whatever reason. I don't regret it. That's not my point. It was just something I could have done and didn't do.
Okay.
And I don't know, like, did a
How much
my point is, when I
opportunity
was
did you have?
16, I'm not sure that I couldn't have made the same decision about having sex with one of my teachers.
Right.
But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's things I'm not thinking of. I don't know. That's just like the natural kind of horny 16-year-old guy thing that comes out in you.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
16-year-old guys like exactly, let's go. But I'll
When
tell
you
you what.
look at it from a guy with like an underage girl,
Hmm.
um, it starts to get a little different, like a 16-year-old or whatever, which that's his age of consent. I know that. Um,
But
but it
Todd,
feels a little, the power dynamics feel a little different, but yet I don't know if they are.
and we
You know what I
talked about
mean?
that too, because that was interesting too. Would it be like, do you feel differently if it's an older
Yeah.
man and a young girl? But I know this that a young girl, and I don't know if it happens. I can't remember if the research shows that it happens when you're older, when you're like over, let's say over 25. But young girls, especially when they engage in sexual activity with a guy, they form an emotional attachment to him. It's one of the side effects, if
Yeah.
you will, of engaging in sexual activity. So I just think, man, and everyone in that age group is too young to understand the ramifications because they don't know what a sexual relationship really is or means.
So is
Or
your
the
whole point that
impact.
people should just
They should just wait till
wait till they
marriage.
get
And
married, and that your whole point?
no, I don't know. I
I'm not
mean,
saying that's a bad point. I'm not. That's probably. I mean, like we said, like God kind of worked things out.
yeah. My assessment at the end of all of that is I think you should teach your kids just to wait as long as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I think that is the wisest thing.
Yeah. No, it makes sense.
And I
You're
don't think
probably
you should
not.
just be like, it's dirty, it's forbidden. Like, I don't
Yeah, you
think you
got to
should
figure out a
teach
way
them that.
to deal with it.
Yeah, I think you
I
just
agree.
say to them, there's a lot involved in that, and there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that kind of relationship, and you really should wait until you're a little bit older so that you can handle those things. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that is an oversimplification, but
But we have, I mean, and this would be kind of going back to my
yeah,
original thing, which is we have an entire culture that for the last, I don't know, most of the time we've been alive,
I was going to say, I feel
they
like my
they
whole life.
toss that out.
Yep,
And whatever you want to do is okay.
yep,
And it's okay. Like kids should be able to
yeah,
figure, they can decide if they're a boy, they can decide if they're a girl,
yeah,
they can decide if they want to have sex, at least with kids their own age. That's kind of what we've, I
right.
guess, have developed as a society, right?
Yeah,
I mean, doesn't that seem like where
be,
we're
be,
at?
because the most important thing is that you're happy. Does it
Yeah.
make you happy?
Yeah. And so just go for it. And
Yeah,
it's like sex is whatever, and
yeah,
and
it's tough.
there's not a lot of ties. And so I do think that there's a, on the other end of, so I say you've got all these, it does seem like things are growing out there and incidents and whatever. And maybe you're right that that's just because we're seeing more or whatever,
Hmm.
it's hitting X, and something from Arizona I'm hearing about that I otherwise wouldn't have 25
Hmm.
years ago. I can relate, that's all possible.
Yeah.
But I do think on the other side of that kind of ever kind of growing, transforming, enveloping evil metastasis that's out there, you know what I
Uh-huh.
mean?
Yeah.
I do think
Evil
that
metastasis.
like God's out there, and I think that there's on the other side,
Hmm.
there's this movement growing that's kind of
Hmm.
going back toward um toward morality, toward
I
the
think so.
culture that
Among young people?
not only, yeah,
Oh,
both. I do think,
both.
yeah, but
Okay.
definitely among young people for sure.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And so maybe, maybe what we're seeing, we're like, maybe in 30 years, we'll look back and we'll be like, man, this generational shift was, we didn't see this quite coming. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. I think that's cool. I do think the awareness of porn's like effects and its, the addictive issues associated with watching porn. I
Yeah.
do think that the awareness of that and like talking about it, and there's like treatment and support
Right.
groups and all that sort of thing. I think that it's good. It's a positive thing, and I think that might be just like drugs. We were taught to be
Well, to
careful
some
of
extent,
drugs. Now young people are being taught of the dangers of porn. So I think
we
that there
didn't
is
know,
some, yeah,
we invented these smartphones and we didn't know what the hell they were going to do.
I know.
I mean,
We
really,
really
we
didn't.
didn't have the slightest idea what they were going to do to our distraction level, how they
Hmm.
were going to change our lives.
Yep.
We didn't know how they were going to change porn consumption. We didn't know how they were
Right.
going to change communication availability
Communication.
between teachers and
Right.
students.
Oh, right.
We didn't
True.
know any of the things that, like,
Hmm.
all of these cultural, societal ramifications of these little screens. We
Yes,
just didn't know.
exactly.
And we're finding out. You know what I mean? And
Right.
so
Yeah.
it's
You're
kind of
right.
where we're at. And no, I
Exactly.
mean, I'm not saying there's not positive things too. I'm just saying,
Hmm.
like, I will say this. I don't think what we're talking about will be cured by, I don't
Mm-mm.
think it's just let Congress pass the right laws, assuming that they were functional, which they're
No.
not. I think
And
it's
it's
going to
not
have
about
to be,
changing legally the age of consent
no, in the end, that's going to be,
because
it's
it's
in the end,
arbitrary.
it's going to be whether or not there's a kind of that cultural shift and that, and maybe a
Hmm.
revival type of thing and kind of a
Right.
fresh movement that moves people back to that.
Yeah.
And I believe there will be, and
Hmm.
I think that there already is the beginnings of that. On the other
Yeah.
side of that, when you got to think about how things work and how long those types of movements take to kind of grow,
Hmm.
and how long the particular like evil that we're living with has taken to grow. You know what I mean? And
Right.
so, we see things and we think, oh, it's so dark on this end, and yeah, but it's getting lighter, and so the things
Hmm.
shift, but they
Yeah.
don't move. At least on societal wide things like that, they don't move fast. God can
Hmm.
move real fast in people's personal lives.
Hmm.
You can just all of a sudden move you from here to here and whatever. But
Right.
generally, when you're looking across the society,
Hmm.
you know, if something happens fast, it's going to be the revival, and that can happen.
Right.
Um,
So I notice with the evil, I think we feel like it's exploding because our media loves to report on how awful everything is,
yeah.
how shocking it is, how dangerous,
Well, and it is,
teachers,
to be fair.
predator, whatever. But like not, they don't want to promote too much about sexual predators because they don't want everyone thinking about it too hard.
Well, they've got some
Because
conflicting messages because,
yeah, they do.
yeah,
They
what's
do. They're like, oh yeah, the missing children
if
who've
an
come
8 year
into this
old can
country,
decide
don't worry about it.
whether he's a boy or a girl, why can't he decide to have sex or not? Neither, that doesn't
Right.
make any sense.
It doesn't.
There's no logical way to draw those lines.
Yeah. And exactly. And it doesn't make any sense. They want to condemn, teachers being predators of children, but they don't care that there are missing kids coming over the
Right.
border and where they're never
It's
seen again.
yeah.
So, yeah, so you're right, conflicting messages, but the media also doesn't report that excitedly about the positives either. Thank goodness for social media because we see evidence of it.
Yeah.
The trend, I mean, people putting together these compilations of college and professional athletes praising God for their
Yeah, it's cool,
victories.
right?
It's so cool, but you don't see that on the regular
Right.
news.
Yeah.
So the news is always going to give us all the underbelly of,
That's what the
the
wildly
evil.
opinionated news hour is here for. We're here to remind you of that there's still some good in the world.
There is, woo.
Samwise GMG. Uh, well, listen, I think we did pretty well today. I want people to go to share this with people.
Yes,
I should have
please.
told you this in the middle because now you're like, oh God, he's done. Click.
All right.
That's how I am. But um, share this with some friends. Share some of the clips that we put out. You can find us on the socials. And listen, I'm going to put out another, I know this is wild, another new podcast, and I think I'm going to start it next week. And it's just going to be a short little half-hour show. Carrie's not joining me in it. It's going to be the Home Improvement Show. Todd's World, the
Woo.
Home Improvement Show. I figure we've got politics and news. We've got that all nailed here on the Wildly Opinionated News Hour. We've got religion. So we've got
We
religion
do.
and politics. We
We
got
do.
religion with Beers with Jesus, which is coming out tomorrow, which you should listen to. We're starting the book of Acts. And then we're gonna have this little home improvement thing. And I'm not entirely sure exactly what it's gonna look like, but I hope some people will join me. I can
It'll
tell
be
you
fun.
this,
Hmm.
there's not gonna be any politics, news, or religion in it. That much I can tell you. The
I'm going
other
to be listening for a whiff of it, and I'm going to call you out.
the other big part of my life is I've been a builder for 30 some years. And
Hmm.
so I know a fair amount about the building process, home improvement. Now, it's not going to be any kind of a how-to show. It's going to be entertaining, just like all my stuff is
Okay,
entertaining.
got it.
I'm not
In
going
the
to sit
context
there
of,
on a YouTube with a welder and show you how to weld something. That is not what we are going to be doing on this show.
okay,
But
I can't
hopefully,
wait to see it.
hopefully I can give you some, a little bit of knowledge from the
Cool.
builder standpoint and different things. And maybe we'll get, but it's going to be interspersed with a lot of others. But you know what I mean? You know
Right.
how I am. That's what I want everybody to understand that this
It's going to
is
be great.
the Todd's World podcast, but we're not going to have any religion and politics. So
Okay.
if that doesn't happen to be your thing, and it's going to be short, it's just going to be me. Because I'm not asking Carrie for more. She's busy enough as it is.
I
She
know.
could barely get here today.
I know. I'm so sorry. And I'm so long-winded. He just doesn't want me to be part of the show.
In a half hour, there's only, I mean, we just can't get anything done. So anyway, guys, tune in for that.
Hmm.
Thank you for joining us. Keep telling your friends about us and get on to toddsworld.net. We've got the merch on there. Amazon under Todd Allen, you've got all my books. 9 Mile Points Out, which is my new one.
Cool.
Leaves That Blew Away, my memoir. Insurrection and Witness are out there. So yeah, all kinds of fun stuff.
Great.
Todd's World is only growing. So, but we need your help to continue to grow. And we so appreciate that you were here with us today.
Yes, thank
Thanks
you.
for joining us. Thanks for joining me today, Carrie.
Thank
And
you for waiting for me.
we'll see what happens. We'll see you tomorrow with Beers with Jesus.
Yeah,
Hopefully, you guys will listen and join us.
we'll see you then.
All right. Thanks.